Hello everyone, this is Lily, the deck harlot here. Welcome to my channel. For those returning viewers, welcome back. I'm happy for you to be here. And today I would like to continue with recording my tarot deck collection. And today's segment will focus on the mass market decks that I have. A lot of them Rider-Waite Smith clones. And the first one that I'd like to start with is my first tarot deck. This is the Hansen-Roberts Tarot, and this was the first deck that I ever bought for myself way back when, and I still have it, even though you're looking at a deck that's more than 25 years old. It still works. The messages are still good. I like her art. It's hard to believe that every one of these images was colored with pencil. But it's a good all-around deck. And I would actually, if anyone asks me what deck they could get as a beginner, this is certainly one of them, if they don't like the Rider-Waite Smith, because it follows that formula pretty closely. So that is the Hansen Robert. And because I've had this deck for so long, okay, let's do that again. Hello everyone, Lily the deck harlot here. Welcome to my channel. And for those returning viewers, welcome back. I'm happy for you to be here. And today I thought I would continue with recording my collection of tarot decks that I started the other day. And in this segment, I will focus on mass market decks that I've acquired over the years. And I'll start with the first one, which is this one here, the Hansen-Roberts Tarot deck by Mary Hansen-Roberts. And this was my first tarot deck. This is the first tarot deck that I bought for myself 25 years ago. And the messages are still good. As you can imagine, this has sentimental value since it was my first deck. I don't plan on getting rid of it anytime soon. And it's one of those decks where I actually like the art. It's hard to believe that all 78 of these images were colored by pencil, but they were. And it's just a good all-around deck to have. And it's also a deck I recommend if someone is asking me what decks they could use as a beginner. I suggest that this the Hansen Robert could be one of them if they don't like the Rider-Waite Smith, because it does follow that formula pretty closely. And considering I've had this deck for more than 25 years and I use it often, it's still in great shape. Now, the next deck I'd like to talk about is the Robinwood Carol. And here are the backs. And this is another faithful Rider-Waite clone, except for some of the images have been that were overly religious. Robinwood changed the images a little bit so that it's less Christian, or yeah, less Catholic, I would like to say. But she followed the image pretty closely. And this is another deck that I've had for a long time in my collection. And it is a good reader, I find. So this is the Robinwood. Now the Robinwood was either the second or the third deck that came into my collection. And the one that's neck to neck with, because I can't remember which deck I bought first between the two, is this one, which is the Mythic Tarot. And this has an interesting book that goes with it. And yes, I do have the book, although the edition I got, it was a paperback, and the paperback, the cover has fallen off a long time ago. And I really like this Wheel of Fortune. And every character displayed is someone from the, you know, I forget, I think it's the Greeks mythology, or it could be Roman. I'm not too versed in mythology. But they have, some of the cards in here have some good takes on some of the meanings. So there is the Mythic Tarot. Following that, I have this deck here, and you can tell that it's pretty beat up because I've kept this deck in my office at work for years, and I would pull it out. And it's the Zerner Farber deck, which is a smaller size of, I think now it's called the Enchanted Tarot. And it's a series of fiber art that Amy Zerner, I think her name is, went ahead and created. And it's a collage deck as well, so a lot of it is done with fabric. The cardstock is not the best on this deck, but it's still surprising that it held out for so long. And I think one of these days I will get myself the bigger size. So there's the Zerner Farber deck. A deck that I've had for a long time but hardly ever used because it's a pip deck, and it's this one here, the Celtic Tarot by Courtney Davis. It is a beautiful deck, and what attracted me to this deck is, here are the backs, is the Celtic knotwork. And this deck is in order, because I did like the major arcana, and I've always been a fan of this style of art. But it is a pip deck, which over the years, well, I wasn't too fond of it, although they are pretty. But at the time, I didn't know how to read with it. And it is a beautiful deck, but I don't think I'll be keeping this one. So here, the Pentacles. Again, you know, this is really beautiful and well done. And let's give you an example of here are the wands. And here's an example of the court cards. And here are the cups. So that's the Celtic Tarot by Courtney Davis. And another deck that I'd like to show, and this one is fairly sized, and I use this one. It's the Voyager Tarot by Jane Wanless. And these are the backs. And this is, even for, you know, even now I find it's quite an unusual deck. It is a collage deck. It is not easy to read, I find. And I would actually, sometimes I think that I might like to cut the borders off with the titles, because I participated in a workshop last year where the teacher had only left the square, and it was quite striking to be reading with it. It's just that it was hard to recognize the symbols. So and it's a good deck for path working or meditation. So there's the Voyager Tarot. The next one is the Morgan-Greer Tarot. And these are the backs. And until someone mentioned the porn stashes in this deck, I don't know, it's bothered me. But it's another Rider-Waite clone. It's really popular. And it is a good reader. So there's the Morgan-Greer Tarot. And the next one is the Aquarian Tarot by David Palladini. And these are the backs. And the art here is a little bit stark. It does remind you of the art that they used to do in the 1910s, 1920s. Well, that's what I think anyway. And it's an interesting deck. I wish the faces had a little bit more color though, because they are kind of pasty white. It's some of these colors are quite muted. And I'm fascinated that someone else on TarotTube, Christine and Celeste, her channel is, how she can read chakras in those cards. I wish there was a trick to it. So this is the Palladini. The next deck I am going to show you is this one here, which is the Halloween Tarot. And this deck is special to me because it's a deck that I bought when I was in Salem, Massachusetts, in one of the witchy stores there. And this is also a fun deck to have, especially around Halloween. And it is a Rider-Waite clone, but with a twist. And it is a good reader. and it's especially fun with kids. You know, kids like it just because, well, it's got a bit of a cartoon hint to it. Well, it is a cartoon. What am I saying? And it is a fun deck to have. So there's the Halloween Tarot. Another one that I have is the Herbal Tarot by Michael Tierra. And this is also a beautiful deck. And each card features a flower or herb. And again, it's a wider weight clone. And I find this deck did a good job of actually, you know, using the original image and adding the herb that they think corresponds to that deck. So there's the Herbal Tarot. And then I have this one here, which is the Celestial Tarot by Kay Stevenson and Brian Cloud. And Kay Stevenson is the same creator that did the Spiral Tarot. And this one is astrology based. It is a Rider-Waite clone, but they've fixed astrological meaning to some of the cards. Well, to all the cards. If it's not a horoscope, it's a constellation. The problem with this deck, though, it's hard to find the book. Although I think now you can buy it on Kindle. So there's a Celestial Tarot. And then I'll show you this one here, which is the Deviant Moon Tarot. Now, I resisted this deck for a long time, and the only reason I purchased it, here are the backs. The only reason I bought this deck was because I was traveling and I ended up in a New Age shop that sold tarot decks, and I wanted to buy myself a tarot deck, but nothing in the store appealed to me. So I basically settled for this deck because I'm like, well, if I'm gonna get this deck, at least, you know, I can pass it on easily if I don't like it. And the thing is I resisted, and I didn't use it. And finally, I joined a study group on Facebook that was using that deck for studying. And this deck blew me away on the readings I got. They were on point. The messages were clear. And the images that, you know, the deck doesn't creep me out as much as it used to. And sometimes you have some cards where there's a meaning to it and you're like, huh, like it is actually quite a clever deck. So there's the Deviant Moon. Then I have this one here, which is the Crystal Visions Tarot by Jennifer Galasso. And this is, I mean, I like the art in this deck. These are the backs. Although I think this deck would probably benefit from having the borders chopped off, or even being a bigger card, because there's a lot of details in those cards. This is a beautiful Eight of Swords, I think. And there's a little bit of a fantasy style to the images. So there's a Crystal Visions Tarot, and look at this world. And then I have this one here, which is the Housewife Tarot. And this is a cheeky little deck. Well, that's what I like to call it. And this is just a funny deck. It's what they did with this deck, I think, is quite clever. It's 1950s art, and they had a, you know, they started playing with it. So there's the Housewife Tarot. So this concludes part 1 of my tarot deck collection, Mass Market. I will have another video out with other mass market decks later on. If you have any feedback or comments, please leave a message below. And I'll wish you a good day. And until next time.